The draft is over. Free agency is finally here. But before we get into it real quick, some people were wondering who won the finals and what happened with the playoffs last year. Basically, Portland came out of the West. They beat Golden State in the conference finals in Game 7 to make it out of the West. And then out of the East, Philadelphia, with their young core and Paul George leading them, beat the Cavs in 6. And then Portland ended up taking down Philly in the finals. So Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, the undersized backcourt, Portland adding Yusuf Nurkic, I guess made the difference according to 2K to get them the championship. On the other hand, it doesn't look the best for us because Philly did make it to the finals, and we're aiming for Paul George next summer. He's got LA ties. There's rumors he wants to come back, or there's rumors that he wants to come to LA. So them going to the finals isn't good because one of Paul George's main priorities is winning, and he said that's very important to him. So if they're winning, that's not good. The only hope that I have is maybe since they made it to the finals this year, maybe they collapse next year and it's a very disappointing year, frustrating, or they don't make it back to the finals and he decides to look elsewhere or test the market, and that'll give us a shot. So we got to keep our fingers crossed on that with Paul George. Like I said, being in LA, you're always going to have a shot with the superstars in the league. We've been in contact with Blake Griffin, talking to his agent a little. It looks like he's going to re-sign under the new salary cap with the Clippers on the new max. But you're always going to have that shot, maybe get the meeting with the star players just because of LA and what the Lakers franchise is and the history. So I'm definitely going to try to use that to our advantage and talk to some of the big names, or even some of the guys who maybe aren't superstars but are good players or stars or solid players on teams, and try to lure them here to LA. Of course, the team also matters a lot to guys, where you're at, if you're rebuilding, if you're kind of in the middle, or if you have a shot to win it, especially if they were to come. That means a lot. So that's why we're trying to grow this team and get them to the point where then we're attracting guys, because right now, with how young we are and being in the lottery, it doesn't, if a guy wants to win and he's in his prime, it's not necessarily the best place, even though we are the LA Lakers. So real quick, before we get into who we're going after in free agency and who we're talking to, I want to go through our team real quick, just who's on the roster. You've got D'Angelo Russell, Randall, Clarkson, Lonzo Ball, Zubac, Ingram, Monte Ellis, Emmanuel Mudiay, Mozgov, Antetokounmpo, Dwayne Bacon, who we just drafted, Brewer, and then free agents Nwaba is a free agent that we want to re-sign off of the team. So that's just the roster right now. One thing I noticed while looking at the team is our age and how young we are. You've got Russell's 21, Randall's 22, Ball's 20, Zubac is 20, Ingram's 19, Nwaba's 24, Mudiay's 21, Antetokounmpo's 25, Bacon's 21, and then Clarkson's 25. He's kind of the odd man out. He's kind of ahead of our core a little bit. That's why he might be the one to get traded, or he's the one that I'm leaning towards possibly getting rid of to lighten up the load that we've got at the backcourt. 2K has their team intel page, and I was just looking at it, and I just noticed like how young we are, because they have your starting 5 and then they bring your 6th man, and Mudiay's 21, Russell's 21, Ingram's 19, Randall's 22, Zubac is 20, and then Nwaba's your 6th man at 24 years old. And it's just like the starting 5 and then the core of our bench, we're just crazy young. I mentioned that David Nwaba is a free agent earlier. He also elected to test free agency, so that's kind of making me a little nervous, because a 3-and-D guard like him, who's really good on defense and can knock down the open shot normally, shoots about 47%, I think, in the stats video. Having him out on the market and him wanting to test free agency, it's a nerve-wracking a little bit, but we're going to send an offer out to him and cross our fingers, hope to get him back at a decent price. We can't overpay for guys like that because our core is young, and eventually we're going to have to pay our core, so we have to keep salary cap space available. But at the same time, since these are players that we have the bird rights to, we can always go over to sign guys like Russell and Ball, guys we've drafted, if we really need to. You just don't want to have to do that with every one of them. You want to try to maintain as much salary cap space as you can, so then you're able to sign those free agents from other teams to round out your roster, really. Nwaba is also an unrestricted free agent, which makes it even more nerve-wracking because you don't have that safety net where if you were to get an offer, you can just match it and have him come back. The decision's not in your hands. It's fully up to Nwaba. So I'm hoping that the culture we created, the minutes we gave him, we brought him up from the D-League, gave him the opportunity. He was undrafted drafted when nobody else gave him a shot. We did, and I'm going to try to use all that to kind of draw and lure him back to LA. Hopefully I don't have to use that and he just wants to come back, but we'll see. Right now, our salary cap, our total team salary is at $72 million. We've got about $22 million in room. Our 3 big contracts are Mozgov, who's at about $15.30 million this season. Clarkson makes about 12, and then Monte Ellis makes about 11.5. Brewer is up there at $8 million, and then after that, a lot of the guys are just on rookie contracts. They're all high picks, most of them. Russell, Ingram, Ball, Randall. So they're making good amounts of money as rookies, but they're still not big contracts. And then the rest of our roster kind of rounds out with guys on the mid-level exception and kind of just a couple million. So now moving on to free agency, my main concern for this team, the main thing that I'm looking to add is shooting. The one thing that would happen a lot during the season is our offense would get it wouldn't be spaced, it'd be very crammed, very bogged down. We wouldn't be able to hit shots, and when you can't spread the floor and open the floor up in today's NBA, nothing goes right. So I'm looking for shooting just everywhere. I'm debating, do I just sign an older veteran shooter, like a Kyle Korver if he's out there. JJ Redick's out there, but he's going to get a lot of money. Or power forwards who can shoot, centers who can shoot, a point guard who can basically anybody who can shoot. But where I really don't want to go for a guard who can shoot, because we already have guards, and we have a lot of young playmakers and ball handlers and guys who will create shots for others. We just need some guys who can knock down those shots and can attract the defender or can prevent the defender from coming and helping, and just stand out there and let our young guys go to work. And then if they are forced to help, they will knock down the open shot. That's really what we need and what I'm trying to look to add in free agency. So with that being said, free agency has just started. Offers are just starting to be made. So I'm just going to kind of name off a bunch of guys that we're kind of looking at and monitoring, and then some guys that I'm going to put offers out to right now, and then some other guys like maybe a Kyle Korver who I'm just going to kind of watch. Right now has no offers, and if free agency's kind of coming to an end, maybe there's a week left or only 2 or 3 days left, and he's still sitting out there with no offers, or I think I can match the few offers that they have or give them a better offer. And I don't think, a guy like Kyle Korver isn't going to play a ton of minutes, but if we need a guy to knock down a shot, he can definitely knock down that shot. So that's kind of how I'm approaching the free agency. But then there's also some other guys, I really want to get a power forward who can shoot. We're not a team that's making the playoffs and is maybe a piece or two away from advancing to the conference finals or even the finals. We're more of a young team. Most of our roster is filled out by young talent with a lot of potential that just needs to mature and grow together. Assuming that we sign back David Nwaba, we only have 2 open roster spots, and I've identified the one main issue of our team, kind of the big point of emphasis, as shooting, and I plan on using those 2 roster spots to add shooters. I want to add a big who can shoot, and I want to add an athletic guard or forward who can move around the floor and spread the floor and can shoot. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. So we're not going to be out there offering tons of guys. I think we're gonna put out some offers at the beginning, and then we're just going to kind of keep our eye on some guys over the course of free agency, and we'll see what happens and who wants to come to LA. So looking at the bigs first, we talked to Blake Griffin. Doesn't look like he's interested. Serge Ibaka's a little bit too old. Doesn't fit the youth of our team. So another guy we're looking at is Mirotic. He's 26. He can shoot the 3 ball. He is a restricted free agent from Chicago. The one thing is he's not the best defender. He doesn't handle the ball very well. He's kind of slow-footed, but like I said, his main job is going to be to shoot. But the one thing with him is he's very inconsistent or streaky. He can get really hot and be knocking down the threes like crazy, or he can go really cold and can't knock down a 3 to save his life. Another guy who's out there that I like is Patrick Patterson. He's had some deep playoff runs with the Raptors, but the Raptors are going after Ibaka, so it looks like they're not going to have very much money to really re-sign Patterson or even worry about him. And he's unrestricted. He's also a good 3 shooter. He's a little bit better defender, can move his feet a little bit better, a little more consistent. He's still kind of streaky, has his ups and downs, but not as much as a Mirotic. And I'm thinking we're gonna put an offer out to him. Not sure exactly. I'm thinking maybe like a 1 year, about $4 or $5 million. Just sign him on a 1 year deal. It doesn't look like he's looking for a crazy long-term deal. Another guy who's out there is Jonas Jerebko of the Boston Celtics. He also, like Patterson, has playoff experience with the Celtics. He's 30 years old. He's from Sweden. He's unrestricted. He's a guy who just a lot of energy and effort. I love his game. He crashes the glass every possession, offense and defense. He's a solid shooter. He's not as streaky as the other two. He's not as good of a shooter as the other two when those two are on fire, but he's also not going to have the low dips that those two have. So I'm thinking I'm going to extend offers to Jerebko and Patterson. At the center position, there's really only two guys who can shoot the ball. I'm not really interested in either of them. There's Kelly Olynyk, which I'll never sign him because of what he did to Kevin Love. I'm sorry. Yes, I hold grudges. Olynyk is not getting a spot on this team. The other guy is Muscala. Both of them are 26 years old. Muscala's had some playoff experience. So has Olynyk. Olynyk with the Celtics, Muscala with Atlanta. Olynyk is restricted. Muscala is unrestricted. So I'm internally debating between Muscala, Mirotic, Patterson, and Jerebko. Those are kind of the four. I'm going to think it over for the next couple days. We'll probably let all of these guys' agents know that we're interested, and then whichever ones we receive mutual interest back from, we will probably send an offer out to them. I'm sure that all these guys will probably have multiple offers, so we'll send them all offers out, and then we'll see which ones we get serious interest back from, and that's kind of where we'll be at in the next video. As for the athletic guard that I was talking about that I would like that can shoot, right now there's not really anybody out there. If there's any kind of guy who's a solid guard or forward, who's an athlete, who can handle the ball and can shoot, or even just catch and shoot like a Korver, or a JJ Redick, or an Alex Abrines, or a Justin Holiday, they're going to get a good offer, and we're probably not going to be able to match it, or we have the money to match it. But thinking ahead to the future, I don't want to offer a guy like that a contract when I'm going to have D'Angelo Russell, Julius Randle, Emmanuel Mudiay, Brandon Ingram, guys like that to re-sign. I've got to keep the cap open, at least open enough that we'll be able to re-sign those guys and not be way over in the luxury tax, because when we do sign them eventually, even though since we have their bird rights and we can go over the cap to sign them, at that time when they're in their primes, if we have other guys locked up, we want to keep the cap open so then we can put specific pieces around them at that point. So I don't want to sign a shooter like that and then have him on a big contract and then eventually have a Luol Deng situation again. So that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. So as for the guards, right now we're just monitoring them. Not any specific targets really. As the days go by and a lot of them get signed or get offers, I'll kind of let you guys know then who we're looking at. We might not even end up signing a guard, just depending on who's out there. If not, I would go into the season with an open roster spot and then maybe try to fill it by trade or by buyout or something like that. So with that being said, that's all I've got for you guys on this first day of free agency. The next video, we should be about a week in. We should have some offers out there to some players. We should know players who are interested in us, guys who aren't. Some big names should get signed. There should be some surprise signings. A lot of guys should be off the board or not available. And that's kind of where we'll be at in the next video, where I'm hoping to be at. So I want to thank you guys for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.